I keep my home
Well, good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be back. George Morgan here at your service. It's PSGL, it's Wednesday night, it's Spain tonight as well. Lots on the table, lots of battling. The title contest is still alive and kicking. And Jack, it's only taken us 10 rounds. We're on the 11th. It's all to play for.
Boromant goes on the inside and takes the lead on the final lap of the race. Now it's side by side between Boromant and Warner, but Boromant's got the inside.
Literally a guest star here in this phenomenal race. Cameron Dowd looking to take P2 in his very first PSGL F1 PC race. Incredible to say the least. You see that Prix to lead. 1.5 seconds. PRS is the name.
Alright, hello everyone, welcome back. It's that time of the week, it's time for some more PSGL. Today, we arrive at Qatar for the 4th round of this Season 34 here on the PC side of things in Formula 3. I am your race commentator, More Games, and glad to be bringing you this all-new circuit for the F1 23 game. And as you can see on your screens, here are the championship standings after the first 3 rounds of the season. Liam Stevens currently leading this championship as he's been ultra consistent so far, has not finished outside of the top 4 in any of the races so far. He's been doing very well up until this point and scoring his best result last week. That was P2 at Silverstone. But then the race winner from Silverstone, it's Cameron Dowd. Obviously didn't have the greatest of first races in Brazil, but he's been able to pick it up with 2 podiums since then. And it is very, very tight at the top of the field. And you can see the top 4 separated by just 7 points, and the other drivers aren't too far behind either, so it's extremely close at that top end of the field. So hopefully that means we have a close championship battle for the rest of the season. But today we are focused on Qatar and the 4th round of the season, so we can jump right in to the lobby. As you can see, we are arriving at the circuit now, and the drivers in the pit lane, and they are now getting themselves outside of the pit lane to get ready for their first lap times of the session. So obviously this is a brand new circuit in the form of Qatar, so plenty of new experiences we'll be having watching the drivers racing around this 16-turn circuit. And it's a very interesting one indeed, especially the shape of it. You can see plenty of twisty turns along with a couple of 90-degree turns and then some very fast, high-speed turns in the final sector of the lap time. So it's definitely got variety at this circuit. Obviously, this circuit is meant for motorbike racing in MotoGP. So it's a lot more high speed rather than low speed. You don't get too many low speed ones, although there are a couple of turns that you will be seeing the drivers take in maybe 3rd gear is the lowest they'll be, which is the case for most circuits on this game. You can see one of the first drivers out on circuit is an AlphaTauri man. It is going to be Louis Welch, who is going to be the first man to set a lap time. So we'll ride on board with him and we'll really get a feel for exactly what this Qatari circuit is going to be like. And well, I'm definitely excited to find out. I did do a couple of laps in time trials just to get a feel for what this circuit is like. Obviously it's a new one, I'd like to see what it is like. And yeah, it's definitely very satisfying to drive, a bit like Saudi Arabia. Some nice flowing turns. You really get a nice feel at this circuit. Overtaking wise, obviously I don't know. There's only one DRS zone, so we'll find out exactly how that goes in the Grand Prix itself. But Louis Welch is now coming out of the final turn of turn number 16, the beginning what will be his first, hopefully, valid lap time of the session. So down this very long pitch straight with the DRS wide open. I'm sure we'll see plenty of overtakes heading into this nice long right-hander of turn number 1. You can see trying to carry the speed with 5th gear there, and then going really wide on the entry, using all the curb you possibly can, and then cutting this next right-hander. Then we have the double right-hander coming up next. This is of turn number 4 and 5. You can see trying to carry that speed through 6th gear. Don't want to lift for that turn number 5, which he doesn't. So nice job from Welch as he slows down for the hairpin of turn number 6, and then getting right back up to speed. And you can see trying to hit a late apex here as you have a little bit of a right and then a small left here, followed by another right. Really easy to invalidate at that last right-hander, so we might see some drivers invalidating there by cutting it a little bit too much. And then really nice exit there from Welch as he gets nice and onto the white line of the circuit. Then these flat out turns of the final sector of the lap time. No lifts through here, just completely pedal to the metal as we now have a little bit of a lift through turn number 15. And then we get ready for the final turn of the circuit, down to 5th gear, and then opening up the steering for the final turn, getting up on those maroon and white curbs. And then across the line, Louis Welch, the first man to set a lap time. What will it be? It's a 1 minute 20.2, and that is the benchmark for the drivers to try and beat now. And the first man to beat it is going to be Fionn McKee, who goes up to P1 for Haas. Very good job from him. You can see some other lap times coming in, but let's take a look at our championship leader. He's coming out of the middle sector and into the final one, as we now see him head through turn number 14. This turn number 15 is quite difficult, as you have to get that lift right. If you lift too much, you're obviously going to be losing time, but if you don't lift enough, you might see yourself going off of the circuit, invalidating, and maybe even worse in the form of a spin. But Liam Stevens out of the final turn. Let's see what the Ferrari man can do. Can he go to that provisional pole position? And it looks like the answer is no. He misses out by just a 1/10 of a second. But one man who can go to that provisional pole position is Drake Dempsey, who was just behind Liam Stevens there. So Drake Dempsey, the current man on provisional pole position. The American doing very well, but that gets overtaken by the new McLaren man, Paul Eckelmeyer, who now goes to P1 with a 1 minute 20.144. So it looks like those low 1 minute 20 second lap times is what you're going to want to be aiming for, but I'm sure we are going to see a driver or two trying to dip into those 1 minute 19 second lap times. It's definitely possible at this circuit. We'll just have to wait and see who is going to be able to do it first. But we can now take a look at where everyone places themselves, and we'll start at the back because Marquis and Mick Lavic are both in P19 and P20, and that was because they obviously made mistakes or invalidated their lap times. You can see the red circuit on Mick Lavic's mini-map there, sorry. That means he has invalidated his time, and then Marquis obviously also invalidating his lap time, so he brings it back into the pit lane. So those two, unfortunate that they can't get their banker times onto the board. The banker time is usually quite crucial. You really need to get one onto the board, as it will set you up for the rest of the session and give you a delta to compare yourself against, to tell you where are you losing time and where are you gaining time. So it is really important to get that. And one thing I've actually noticed here is drivers come into the pit lane. It's a very interesting pit lane, this one, as that you completely skip that final turn. And instead you take this different turn. You can see this long right-hander, and what some drivers are doing, they're actually turning on their pit limiter a bit early, and that's causing them to slow down. So you're going to see drivers aggressively going into that pit lane turn, which is it's definitely different to what you usually see at an F1 circuit. I'm not too sure there are many circuits where you have a corner like that where you really have to tack and then get a good exit as well as you head into the pit lane. So definitely a new one here in Qatar. But all the drivers are back into the pit lane, although as I say that, people quickly getting out. Once again, Louis Welch, he was the first man out on track at the start of the session. He is now going to be the first man out on track for the second lap times of this qualifying. 11 minutes to go, so plenty of time for everyone to just relax in the pit lane, take a moment and wait for a bit of track evolution before going out for their second lap times. But everyone anxious to get a second time onto the board, because You know, you really want to be getting as many laps in as possible with a new circuit like this. When you're in the actual qualifying session itself in PSGL, it's a bit different to what you do in practice when you're just practicing with your teammates and trying all these different things. This is the real thing at a brand new circuit, so they really have to get as much running as possible in this session itself, and Louis Welch really taking that on board. So he's now going to come out of turn number 16 and begin his second lap time of the session. So his original time, a 1 minute 20.2, that puts him at about a tenth and a half off of that pole position time. But sadly, all the way down in P12, just goes to show how close it usually is in F3 and continues to be at this Qatari Grand Prix. Now through this second turn, you can see the Mercedes a little bit late there, getting out of the way. Louis Welch was not able to predict it. He went the same way as the Mercedes, and now that could be a penalty. We'll see what Mercedes it was. It was Drake Dempsey who made that mistake and just was not aware that the AlphaTauri behind him was on a lap. Obviously, most drivers on the circuit currently are on out laps. Just did not know that Louis Welch was going for a flat-out hot lap. So that's unfortunate for Drake Dempsey, but he has been caught napping there, and that could cost him at the end of today's Grand Prix, as there most likely is going to be a penalty coming his way, whether that's a qualifying ban or penalty points. That's for the stewards to decide, but yeah, just unfortunate for Drake Dempsey to be caught out like that. But let's look at someone else now. You can see Fabos is now coming into the first sector of the lap times. He heads through the second turn. You can see he's taken a bit of a different line, but it has not worked out for him. Tries to cut that second turn, but in turn it has left him going wide on exit. So that's invalidated his time. So he's just going to try to get back to the pit lane as quickly as possible. Unfortunate for the man who's currently in P6. Let's look at someone else. We can see Franco is going through this sixth turn, and probably the slowest turn of the circuit, that hairpin there. And then we have this very long turn of number 7. This was quite a tricky one to get right. It is easy to go off of the circuit and invalidate your lap time, as Franco going nice and cutting that turn there. Not invalidating his lap time though, which is absolutely crucial. So we had a very nice line through that 9th turn. Let's see what he can do in this final sector though, as he is taking these turns flat out. So this is probably the easiest sector of the circuit, but it all comes down to this one turn. Very tricky, this one. You can see he has gone deep through there. Will cost him slightly, but he has just got one more turn to go, and that is the final right-hander of turn number 16. And you can see a little bit of a slide of the rear end, but keeping it stable enough. And out of the final turn, can he improve on that 1 minute 20.1? The answer is yes, but only marginally. It pops him onto the provisional front row of the field with his teammate Eckelmeyer. So good job from Franco to get himself up there. He is now just 12 1,000ths away from that provisional pole time. Drake Dempsey is another man who's finishing up his lap, but sadly, coming out of the middle sector, he is down on his time, and by 4 100ths of a second. It's not looking good for the Mercedes driver, so unless he can find some time now through these final 2 turns, and the answer is he can't. But now, PSR Skizzer has just gone to provisional pole position. He is the first man to get into those 1 minute 19-second lap times, and in fact, he is now out in front by a tenth of a second ahead of Eckelmeyer, although that has changed because he is now, he was 2 tenths ahead of Eckelmeyer. He's now a tenth ahead of Alves in the Mercedes. So Skizzer really showing everyone how it's done at this new circuit, and that is a stunning lap time from the Williams driver. But we did think that the drivers were going to find a way into the 1 minute 19-second lap times. It was just a question of who is going to find it first, and well, your answer, it's going to be Skizzer who takes that provisional pole position now. So it was quite close at the front at the beginning of the session, but everyone getting a little bit further away now, especially with that time from Skizzer. Although we now have our championship leader Liam Stevens getting himself up there into the top 3 on a 1 minute 20 flat. It's a good time to set from the Ferrari man. He now just finds himself a tenth off of that provisional pole position, and obviously he'll be aiming to get close to there. But honestly, Liam Stevens' main characteristic and his main strength this season, just by looking at the championship standings, you could say, is his consistency. So even if he isn't battling for that pole position, he's always been in the top 4 so far this season. and I'm sure his consistency is not going to let him down today as he finds himself once again in the top 4 positions. This time it's on the second row of the field in P3. But everyone else now back into the pit lane, or coming back to the pit lane, or there are a few actually on outlaps. Once again, you can see Miklavic still in P20 without a lap time. His teammate Skizzer in P1 with that 19.9. So yeah, Miklavic definitely needs to get a lap time onto the board here, as not having a lap time onto board and leaving it this late in the session, obviously not something that he intended to do, but it's just how it's ended up for him. So he needs big time here onto the board, because he's probably only going to get 1 lap time, maybe 2, but I doubt he can get back to the pit lane that quickly. So this will probably be his final lap of the session. That goes for Franco, who's also on an out lap. I believe Fabios is on a lap, Louis Welch on a lap, and Laminen in P18 is also on a lap time. So these guys setting, I believe this might be their final times. I think they might be able to get back to the pit lane. It will be close, but only time will tell us whether or not they can get back to the pit lane in time. In fact, Louis Welch will definitely be able to get back to the pit lane, because I believe he's not on a lap time. He's just gone on to 1 lap of wear on the softs. So he's probably making his way back to the pit lane, or he's going for a lap on worn tires, which is obviously not ideal, as that can lose you a 10th or 2, and in this grid that loses you about 10 positions. But riding on board with Miklavic on the fresh soft compound of tire, he comes through turn number 6, takes that quite nicely. And let's see, where is he struggling at this circuit? Is there a certain turn where he's invalidating his time consistently, or is this going to be the one where he can get it onto the board? But there it is. It's turn number 9 that has caught him out, and I said that would be a tricky one for the drivers. Miklavic just cannot get his head around it, and because of that, he's now probably invalidated 3 times in this session. He's just going to have to bring it back to the pit lane or recharge the ERS and go again. But yeah, like I said, that turn 9, it's a brutal one, really tricky to find the balance and get it right. And sadly, Miklavic is just one of those drivers who cannot seem to find that happy medium. So he brings it back to the pit lane. He will get one more opportunity because of the fact that he has abandoned this lap time and gone back to the pit lane. So he has got one more opportunity to set a lap, but so far not looking good for him. Louis Welch also back into the pit lane. Fabios is going to have to get a move on, try to get back to the pit lane as quickly as possible, as he tries to cut a few turns to get there a little bit faster. But yeah, Fabios, he's got about 3 minutes left in the session. You need to be getting out of the pit lane at around that 2-minute mark if you want to be getting a lap time onto board, and that's obviously not registering any traffic problems that might be caused by everyone else doing their outlaps. So you can see taking some royalties there with the track limits to try and get back into the pits. It's going to be very close. Don't know if Fabios is going to be able to get a lap time onto the board. I think no, he won't. So a little too late there from the Alfa Romeo. 1 minute 20.107 will be his final time of the session. Although he might, but like I said, very unlikely that he will. And matter of fact, that lap time is actually identical to his teammate ET8 Moldovan in P4. So 2 Alfa Romeos right beside each other in this qualifying order. You can see Tony Riesch has he's retired from the session in the pit lane, so decided not to go out for another lap. Maybe he's trying to conserve a set of soft compound tires for the Grand Prix itself. I'm not too sure. Nevertheless, he will not be setting another lap time in this session. But we now see Jack Humphreys for Parnell Racing, and he is in the final sector of the lap time and will most likely be the first man to set his final lap in the session, as he's ahead of everyone else currently. Although you can see the Red Bull, that's of Laminen for TF10, following closely behind. But we will see this lap time now from Jack Humphreys. He currently finds himself down in P15, not an ideal position to be in, so he definitely needs to find improvement on this lap time. And let's see if he can do exactly that. Coming across the line, the lap time has now begun. Let's see how he does as he comes down into turn number 1, trying to carry the speed, hitting a late apex and then getting up on that exit curb. Wide entry for this second turn, and then once again getting up on the white line, using as much of the track as the FIA will allow you. Into this double right-hander of turn number 4. It's all about carrying the speed, carrying the momentum, getting a nice flowing line, and Jack Humphreys, very nice through there, and he is improving by a 1/10.5. That's a massive improvement, and that's only through the first sector of the lap time, so this could be a big lap from the Aston Martin Parnell Racing driver through the 7th turn, now riding the curb of turn number 8. Trying not to cut that turn number 9 too much, as we saw you can invalidate that quite easily. Now with the exit of turn number 10, very nice through there, getting up onto the curb as much as you possibly can. He's improving by 0.3 of a second. Could this be a pole position time from Jack Humphreys, or is the track evolution getting a bit crazy at the end of the session? You can see almost invalidating his lap time, but he manages to keep it in within the track limits through the final turn of turn number 16. This could be an amazing lap time from the Parnell Racing driver down this pit straight with the DRS wide open, climbing, and across the line. It's a 1 minute 19.936. Jack Humphreys from P15 in the field has just gone up to pole position. Can anyone now beat that? We see Eckelmeyer has gone to P3. His session is over. Liam Stevens setting a 20 flat. He goes to P4. Skizzer has come back into pit lane. He's invalidated his lap time. He will not be improving on his time, so his session is over. We're seeing Nelson Alves through the final turn of the lap time. His current time is a 1 minute 20 flat. Can he get into 1 minute 19 seconds? He's got the DRS open, and now across the line, the Mercedes driver, where will he place himself? It's on pole position. Nelson Alves has taken that pole position by 2/100ths of a second, and he's done it at the death of the session. Brilliant from the Mercedes driver. Morawiecki is able to pop himself into the top 6 positions at the end of the session. But here's Mick Lavic, the man who did not have a lap time set for the entire session. Give him 2 minutes at the very end, and he is the man on pole position, and by over 0.5 of a second he gets into the 1 minute 19.8. How has Mick Lavic done that? That is stunning from the PSR Williams drivers, and I don't think anyone could have predicted that halfway through the session. He was struggling at turn number 9, was in P20 for 18 minutes in the session, but it does not matter, because what does matter is where you are at the very end of qualifying, and Mick Lavic finds himself on a surprising pole position. And I mean, that is fantastic from the Williams man. He will be starting from the front of the field for this Qatari Grand Prix. And obviously that means Nelson Alves, he gets that pole position stolen away from him. He thought he had it secured, but the Williams driver, out of nowhere, he's going to steal that away by 0.07 of a second. That might not seem like much, but on the F1 23 game, that is a big margin. We have Nelson Alves on the front row of the field, and right behind him it's Jack Humphreys and Skizzer, Eckelmeyer and Franco on the 3rd row, with Morawiecki and Stephen on the 4th, Dempsey and Moldovan on the 5th, with Fabos and Hall on the 6th. McKee lines up alongside Dowds on the 7th, Lav and Welch on the 8th, with Lemimin and Lopez on the 9th, and then at the back of the field it's Marquis and Riche for the 10th row of the field. And that will be your full qualifying order for today's Grand Prix. And before we get to the Grand Prix, a quick word from our sponsor, our main sponsor, GT Omega. That was our title sponsor, GT Omega. You can get a 5% off of any order if you use the code PSGL in all capitals at checkout. So make sure to do that if you want to look for any high quality cockpit gear. And yeah, definitely make sure to check out their link in the description. But we are getting ready for the Grand Prix itself. brand new experience for all of our drivers, and we'll see how each and every one of them react. But taking a quick look at how the drivers towards the front of the championship have done, well, never mind, because we're getting straight into it. We now have 5 red lights. They are gone, and we are away. What kind of start is it for our poleman of McLavish off at the front of the field? It's a brilliant one from him up against Alves coming into turn number 1. You can see Alves under a little bit of pressure from the Aston Martin of Jack Humphreys, who looks that outside line, cannot make that move work just yet. But Skizzer is now going to try to take advantage of that, and he does so very nicely with the medium compound tires. He's ahead of the Parnell Racing man. Humphreys falls down to P4 now. You can see battling in the background. That's Liam Stevens, who's falling down the order a little bit. 3 wide there through turn number 5. And now he's got an Alfa Romeo on his outside line, which turns to the inside for turn number 6. Liam Stevens trying to hold this one, tries to get the better exit. This will turn to the inside line now for the 7th turn. He does just about keep that P8 position. We're seeing Fionn McKee going around the outside of Drake Dempsey. As we now get ready for this 9th turn, he is ahead of the Mercedes man. You can see that might have been contact there between the two of them. Drake Dempsey has to reset to track there as he now falls all the way down to P20. That's a horrific start and such a shame to see from the Mercedes man. He is at the back of the field now and not what he would have wanted off of this race start. Marquis battling with Tony Riesch as he gets ahead up into P18. The Aston Martin doing well to get 2 positions off of the line, trying to recover from his poor qualifying session. That's Drake Dempsey in the background. We're now seeing Skizzer down this pit straight, trying to get a little bit closer to Nelson Alves, and a little bit closer is exactly what he gets. He gets ahead of the Mercedes driver into turn number 1. It's currently a PSR and Williams 1-2 in the Grand Prix itself. PSR are going to be very happy with how this race start has gone. It's now just all about keeping it up for the rest of the race. We can now take a look at the position changes for all of the drivers so far. Skizzer has had a fantastic start, gaining 2 positions off the line, most likely because of his medium compound tire and the advantage that those are giving him, and that has allowed him to move from P4 to P3 in the field. Very good job from Skizzer so far. He's now just got to catch up to the DRS of his teammate. You can see there are also some other gainers in the field. Both of the Haas cars have gained 3 positions each. That's Fionn McKee and Cameron Dowds, who's P2 in the championship, and being down in P11 in this Grand Prix so far is not what you want for your championship campaign. Dowds really needs to gain some positions and move up the order and hopefully get himself into at least a top 6 position in this Grand Prix. You can also take a look at the tyre choices for all of the drivers. You can see the first 2 drivers are the 2 Williams of McLavish and Skizzer, who are both on the medium compound of tyres. And then the only other medium runner in the field is Wilson Hall down in P13. And a matter of fact, he is going to go for a move with his yellow walled mediums down into turn number 1. The DRS is now enabled, and Wilson Hall gets himself ahead of Fabos, who falls down into P13 now. Not been an ideal start for him, dropping outside of the top 10, and he's just got to continue on now, try to recover some positions, although it will be difficult with him being on the hards and his competitor Head Hall being on the mediums. Those mediums, they give you an absolutely massive advantage compared to the hards on this game. As you can see, Fionn McKee very close to the back of Moldovan as they head through turn number 6. And something interesting to note here is we see a bit of a snap of the back end from Jack Humphreys. Eckelmeyer is falling almost outside of the DRS of the top 4. He was outside of that 1 second gap for just a moment. You do not want to allow that to happen. There is only 1 DRS straight at this circuit, but that still means you need to be within that DRS, because otherwise you're going to be losing about 3/10 a lap, especially because that DRS straight is so long on the run down into turn number 1. The 2 Haas cars currently are the closest competitors on circuit. They're currently battling it out for a point-paying position, P10 in the Grand Prix. But it is only lap 4 of 29. Plenty of racing to go. And the DRS is now active for the drivers. Heading down into turn number 1. You can see Skizzer is very close to the back of his teammate McLavish. And McLavish actually is flashing his red light, which means he is below the 10% ERS threshold, and that means he's going to be losing performance in a straight line and off of the exits of turns. So McLavish, he's been pushing extremely hard off of that race start, thought that he might attempt to break the DRS to driver's line, but his teammate Skizzer was able to keep up, and now McLavish in a very disadvantageous position here with that little ERS that he has. Meanwhile, Skizzer on the other hand, plenty of ERS in the tank for him. He's got about 45% or so just by looking at his wheel there, using a little bit of overtake out of that 10th turn to try and make up the distance between himself and his teammate. But Skizzer definitely in a better position ERS wise, and actually Nelson Alves, who's behind him, also low on the ERS. Jack Humphreys is low on ERS, and Eckelmeyer struggling to keep up with that DRS. He's used a bit of overtake, and thankfully I think he's just about got into that 9/10th window, and we can see now, does he have the DRS coming down the straight? Yes is the answer. So the McLaren man just holding on to that DRS as we now see Skizzer making the move as McLavish went defensive into turn number 1 and deciding, well, he decided to try and fight it, but Skizzer just has too much straight line speed heading down that DRS straight. He's able to fly past his teammate. And once again, seeing Cameron Dowds has actually lost a position to Hall, who's moving himself up into P11. So those medium compound tires doing a good job for the Red Bulls so far. He's been gaining position after position. He's now into P11, and he's got the Irishman of, well, a fellow Irishman of Fionn McKee in P10. Just 6/10 is the difference between Hall and McKee, and those mediums definitely still have the advantage at this early stage in the Grand Prix. It's only been 4 laps in the race, which means the mediums probably are around 3/10, maybe even faster per lap. But as the race continues on, as we get closer to maybe that lap 10, lap 12 range, those hards will definitely start to pick up relative to the medium compounded tires. And judging by the tire choices for most of the drivers, I don't think we are going to see any soft compound tires emerge in the field, unless of course there is a late race safety car or a safety car at some period where the soft compound tires would be a viable strategy for any of the drivers. But currently I don't think we are going to see those red wild tires as we have at other circuits previously in the season. McLavish got a little bit closer into turn number 1, but it was not able to complete the move on his teammate Skizzer, and I don't believe there are any team tactics here between the two PSR men. I think they're both in their separate parties with their engineers and just focusing on their own race, not looking to work together, just looking for a fair fight between the two of them, and may the best man win. But it may not be either of them, because Nelson Alves is very, very close to the back of the two, and he's on the better long-term strategy here. He's on the hards, which means he will be switching over to the mediums later on in the Grand Prix, which means as long as he can keep up with the DRS now, he's going to be putting himself in a very nice position come the final laps of the Grand Prix. We can now see our first time penalty of the race. That would be from Fabos, and I believe that was through the 9th turn there, as he's just come out of turn number 10, and most likely was that turn 9. Absolutely brutal turn for track limits. Super hard to judge since you are going at such a high speed, and yeah, definitely difficult for the drivers to keep within the track limits at that turn. We've now seen the first warning, and I'm sure of many to come. Cameron Dowds went a little bit wide there into that turn number 15 on the exit. That might have caused him a warning as well. We'll see if it does. But currently, he's trying to go back onto the move and onto an aggressive attack here against Hall, coming down into turn number 1. And he has that inside line on the Red Bull. Can Hall defend the position? No, is the answer, as he almost loses the car out of the first turn. But thankfully, keeps it on the circuit. Looks like those mediums may not have been as long lasted as I might have thought at the start of the races. It's only lap 6 and he's lost the position to the Haas driver. Are the mediums beginning to fall off? As you can see, once again, another slide, so it might be a lack of grip, possibly a setup issue for the PSR man. But whatever it is, he's lost the position to the RHG Haas driver of Cameron Dowds, who's now back up into P11 and back into a battle with his teammate for P10 in the Grand Prix. currently no one too aggressive in the field, although you can see most drivers in that top 7 are very, very close. You can see with the onboard from Franco, very close to one another, about 3/10 between each and every car. So a single mistake from any driver in this top 7 and you could see a move in the making. But once you drop outside of that top 7, we see our championship leaders, Liam Stevens in P8, and he's struggling slightly to keep up with Franco ahead of him. Currently 8/10 is the difference between himself and the McLaren driver. Coming down into turn number 1, having that DRS is very handy to keep up with Franco. As we see, Moraviak is now getting closer and closer to the back of Paul Eckelmeyer as we come through the second and now the third turn. But no one making moves just yet. You'd have to assume most drivers are most likely waiting for the pit window before they begin to get aggressive and get their elbows out. It's Moraviak through the 5th turn, managing to keep it on circuit, but a bit of a slide of the rear end, maybe showing that he's trying to push without the assistance of ERS and trying to get the most out of these hard compound tires while he still has them on the car. Lap 8 of 29 now, and still very early stages of this race, and this is usually what you see happen at the start of the Grand Prix. No one wants to take risks because the race is definitely not won on lap 8, although as I say that, Fabos has lost 3 positions. What must have been a mistake through the 10th turn. He's lost the position to Laminin and both of the AlphaTauri of Welch and Lav, who've gotten ahead of him, and Fabos falling from P13 to P16. Fabos really struggling now in this race. He's got a 3-second time penalty and he's lost 3 positions. Laminin struggling to defend against Welch, and now through turn number 16, Lav gets a nice exit on the Red Bull driver and he is able to get himself back ahead of the Red Bull. And you can see a bit of contact there between Fabos as he tries to cut back onto the racing line, going a bit early, almost a big incident between himself and the Red Bull. Thankfully, Fabos is able to keep the race going between the two of them, and no major contact was had occurred. So Laminin still in this race, still in P16. But what all this battling has meant is that Louis Welch in the AlphaTauri for TF10 is now 1.1 second away from Wilson Hall. Laminin is actually losing another position. This time it's to Andres Lopez, or is he? Because he's got the good exit out of that that 6th turn there, out of the hairpin, and Lopez is not able to keep up with that kind of traction. So Laminin is back into P16 as Lopez almost losing the car through that 9th turn, that very tricky and infamous 9th turn of Qatar, and might be one to watch for future seasons, as it's definitely been tricky so far in this qualifying and Grand Prix alone. But the drivers continuing on. You can see one thing I've noticed, a lot of drivers through the turns are kind of sliding through the exits, sliding through the entries, and even sliding a little bit on the mid apex. So I think most drivers are quite aggressive with how they've set up their car, liking to go for an oversteer setup, and obviously oversteer is going to be what you want at a high speed circuit. Or no, sorry, oversteer is for pretty much every circuit. If you're on the F123 game, real life a little bit different. But yeah, these guys like to set up their cars aggressively, like to get the absolute most performance that they can from their vehicles. And that does mean that there's a level of control required, and a level of control that some of the top drivers have. And that's why you can see them managing these little slides, as once again Lopez on the back of Laminin through turn number 6. Once again, very close to the back of the Rebel. We're seeing a move behind this between Marquis and Riches. They head through 7 and now 8. The Aston Martin deciding to back out of the move heading into turn number 9. He's not going to risk that one. And he now falls down into P19. Not been an ideal day for Riches so far. He's just got to continue on and hope that the strategy serves him well. And the strategy could serve a lot of drivers well. It could also disservice some of the drivers, especially our top 2 Williams men, as they're both on those medium compound tires. When are they going to hop onto the hards? Because eventually those mediums are going to run out of grip and the tire degradation is going to become too much. But currently on lap 11 of 29, the top 2 holding on to those yellow walled mediums. not requiring a pit stop just yet, although we'll have to see whether or not that changes in the near future. A lot of battling happening at the back of the field. We have the likes of Laminin and Lopez once again going at it. Lopez was able to get ahead down the DRS straight into turn number 1. The Ferrari is up into P16. Fabos, that's a 9 seconds of time penalties, and this has not been Fabos' day. He's just struggled at every point in qualifying and the Grand Prix, and now he is down in P15. 9 seconds of time penalties would currently put him behind the Mercedes of Drake Dempsey and down into P20. So yeah, not good from Babos. Just has to continue though. It's always good to see that even if it is a new circuit, the drivers are as close as ever. The DRS train goes from P1 to P14 and then another from P15 down to P20, but all of the drivers within about 10 seconds of one another, which is what you definitely like to see. Close racing between everyone, and that little split in the DRS train is going to possibly encourage some overtakes, although we now see Fabos has come into the pit lane. So is he going for a big overcut here as he speeds into pit lane? Is he retiring from the session, or is that just a mistake from the Alfa Romeo? I believe it was just a mistake, and he has now come in for the medium compound tires. So he is now up to 9 plus 5. No, he's left the session, and I don't believe he's actually retired. So his ghost car is going to just drive around the circuit, which is obviously not ideal for the rest of the drivers, especially if a safety car is to come out of the pit lane. It will cause a little bit of trouble. So a shame that Fabos didn't retire while he was in the pit lane. But now his ghost car will be just lapping around the circuit at a very nice and steady pace for the Alfa Romeo. Once again, the top 7 not making any maneuvers. Everyone's staying calm at the moment. Although if you make a mistake, I'm sure people will like to capitalize off it, as they're really starting to get close now come the end of this stint. But it's all eyes on the top 2, and what are they going to do on their medium compound tires? How long can they hold on to these? Because surely they'll be thinking of boxing with at least within at least the next 3 laps or so. But on lap 12 of 29, Skizzer is going to come into the pit lane. A late dive, he boxes, or no, not Skizzer, I'm afraid it's McLavish who boxes for the hard compound tires. Quickly darted into the pits to try and get some hard compound tires onto his car. So now he is on an undercut strategy, and on this game, an undercut usually gains you a time of 3 seconds in just 1 lap. So when it's on a scale of maybe 3 or 4 laps, this is going to be a big time game for McLavish, and he needs to make use of it, because the hard tires are, as we saw at the start of the Grand Prix, a lot slower than the mediums. So he needs to make sure that he's got a gap built up to the rest of the field once they come into the pit lane. The same goes for Skizzer in P1. He needs to think about how he's going to approach his upcoming strategy. But you can see at the drivers and where they're all placed currently. These medium drivers are now going to start boxing. We actually saw some hard compound tires, hard compound tire runners box. We saw Lopez, the Minin, and obviously Fabos came into the pit lane as well. But Lopez and the Minin both onto the medium compound tires. So they're going to try to stretch those for, I believe, 17 laps. And we obviously saw McLavish came in after 11 laps on medium. So an aggressive strategy, but they're at the back of the field. They need to try something different, as Laminin has actually also got 8 time penalties. That's not going to help his race efforts. Skizzer going for a different strategy to his teammate McLavish, as Fabos actually disconnected from the session, or maybe he's coming back to retire his car. I'm not too sure, but nevertheless, he is now back into the session. We're seeing drivers come into the pit lane. This is the McLaren of Franco, who's come into the boxes for the medium compound tires. So you can see the hard runners are actually on the more aggressive strategy relative to mediums, because the hard runners are boxing a lot earlier than you would have expected, and they're trying to stretch these mediums for lengths that you would not think they would last for. So we'll see what the tire wear is like. We saw with McLavish, he obviously came in after 11 laps. Skizzer, on the other hand, he's been managing his tires a little bit better, so he's been able to go 13 laps so far. We'll see if he can go 15 and maybe even 16 or 17, like we're seeing Lopez and the Minin try and go for. but when we can now see where everyone is coming out relative to one another. So we have Miklavic in P14, 2.7 seconds ahead of Franco. We have Welch, who's 2.3 seconds behind the McLaren. Then we have Lopez, who's right onto the back of the AlphaTauri of Louis Welch. So that undercut has definitely helped out a little bit. I believe Lopez has jumped a position or two to get where he currently is now. And now, this is interesting to see, isn't it? Alves, Humphries and Eckelmeyer all into the pit lane before Skizzer. And Skizzer's on the medium compounded tires, so you would have thought, obviously, that Skizzer would be the first to box out of the top 5, but no. It's now Alves, Humphries and Eckelmeyer who come into the pit lane for the medium compounded tires. So Skizzer staying out in those mediums, and obviously this means that the tire wear at the circuit must be quite low, because most drivers are trying to take the mediums for longer than the hards. Or maybe the mediums are just better suited for the circuit. I'm not too sure, but nevertheless, these guys stretching the mediums longer than the hards. They just don't want the hards on their cars. They are obviously much slower. Alves comes out of the pit lane 2.2 seconds behind Miklavic. So you can see Miklavic has definitely gained a lot of time from that undercut, as Fabos comes into the pit lane and retires from the session. Good on him for doing that, as an AI car can definitely cause difficulties in the lobby. And obviously it's a shame for Fabos getting those time penalties and deciding that retiring from the session was the right thing to do. But obviously when you don't really have a chance at that top 10, it's very demoralizing, and sometimes it's better to just give it up and try again next week and go for a top 10 position. Reset yourself for the next round of PSGL. You can now see more people coming into the pit lane. This time it's Moravic and Moldovan who box for the mediums. And we need to keep a close eye on the gaps because we have Alves in P12. We have Franco right behind him. So Franco has undercut, I should say, Humphries and Eckelmeyer. So he's gained 2 positions from the undercut. A very powerful undercut. Louis Welch is in the DRS of Eckelmeyer. Louis Welch was battling for about P15, P13, I believe. Eckelmeyer was battling for P7. Now Louis Welch is in that DRS. Louis Welch at the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, so Louis Welch is flying. Liam Stevens, another man who's going quite quick on the circuit. You can now see where everyone is filtering out. We still have Miklavic in the net lead. Alves in P2 after everyone else boxes, so we'll just go on based on who has boxed. So Alves second of all the people who have boxed. Franco is in the podium positions now. Jack Humphries right behind them in 4th. Eckelmeyer in 5th. Louis Welch is in 6th, but he has got 2 laps of wear on those medium compounded tires, so he's a little bit more worn than some of the others. Moraviec is on some of the freshest tires in this will be 6th, 7th place, I believe. Sorry, getting my maths wrong here. So we have Miklavic in P1, Alves in P2, Franco in P3, Humphries 4th, Eckelmeyer 5th, Louis Welch 6th, and Moraviec would be in 7th. Lopez is now up into 8th, Moldovan in 9th, Liam Stevens, so he's down into 10th in the minute in P11. But will those positions stay that way? Because we have more drivers coming into the pit lane. This time it's Skizzer finally boxing off those mediums, and Wilson Hall, another man who's on the mediums, he also decides to come into the pit lane. That's another time penalty for Lemon. I do believe he's up to around 9 seconds of time penalties. And here we go. It's a soft compound of tire for Skizzer. So that's why he stayed out so long on the medium compound of tire. Everyone else going for a hard medium strategy. But no, Skizzer and Wilson Hall are onto the red walled soft compound of tire. A tire that I did not think we'd be seeing today. But nevertheless, Skizzer on the softs. It's now his time to make up as many positions as possible. His first target, Moldovan in P13 in the Alfa Romeo for ETA. Let's see truly how quick PSR Skizzer is going to be. He's got 100%, well, around 90% ERS, but pretty much maximum ERS. He's got the freshest tires, he's got the fastest tires, and he was leading most of this Grand Prix. Let's see what Skizzer can do. Going on a big strategy gamble here is the Williams driver. But you can see, has anyone else lost positions from these pit stops? Jack Lav is down into P18, Marquis in P19. So they have the advantage of fresher tires. But will that be enough to overtake in the DRS train that they find themselves in? Only time will tell us. We're on lap 17 of 29, so we have plenty of time to find out. Louis Welch gets a 3-second time penalty. That's not ideal after gaining all those positions. It's currently in P10. That will improve after everyone else comes into pit lane. Cameron Dowds, P2 in the championship. He's onto the soft compound of Tyre. We're seeing moves here. Moldovan overtaking Lopez and Skizzer. He's deciding to overtake the both of them down this DRS straight. And Moldovan and Lopez don't have a chance against the soft compound Tyre run. He's able to make a double overtake into turn number 1. Very well played from him, using the advantage of the softs while they last. Leminen in P16. He is going to be the first man under pressure from the soft compound Tyre runner of Cameron Dowds as they head through the third turn. So many points of action now in this Grand Prix. We have Nelson Alves on the back of Miklavic. And obviously the Williams on the hard compound tyres. He's not going to stay in that net lead for long. Eventually, he is probably going to lose that position to the Mercedes, I should say. But it's all about holding on for as long as he possibly can. Defense is the main aim of the game for Miklavic as he tries to hold that P4 position ahead of Alves. And then we have the two McLarens of Franco and Eckelmeyer in P6 and P8. Jack Humphries also in that battle at the top. That's a yellow flag now, and that, I believe, is for the Rebel of Leminen, who's made a mistake in the middle sector. He's now fallen down to P18. It's not been a good day for the Rebel man. Plenty of time penalties, and now at the back of the field. Similar day for Marquis as well, down in P19. We're seeing more people come into the pit lane for the soft compound tyres for Fionn McKee. As I try to find where he is in P11. That's now P12 as he keeps dropping. I try to find him. Here we go. Fionn McKee onto the soft compound of tyres. Tony Reich is on a similar strategy. Leminen, our second retirement of the session. He boxes and retires the car. And Skizzer, while we were not looking at him, he has been gaining positions. He's gotten ahead of Louis Welch and Moraviak to make it P7 for the Williams driver. And it will be P6 once Drake Dempsey comes into the pit lane. So these are almost the positions now once Drake Dempsey decides to box. He's actually only 2.6 seconds ahead of the field. So is this a strategy from TES and the two Mercedes of Dempsey and Alves? Are they trying to work together here? Is Dempsey going to cause a little bit of chaos in the field since he doesn't really have a chance at scoring points in the race? Time will tell us on lap 19 of 29. And Alves has been able to make the move on Miklavic, and he's almost broken DRS, although Miklavic, that is through the highest speed turn of turn number 13, or 14 I should say. He has gotten a track limits violation, and that has given him 3 seconds of time penalties. He goes wide through turn number 16. Is this the opportunity that Franco has been waiting for? Yes, it is indeed. He gets ahead of the Williams, and that's not the only man to get ahead, because Jack Humphries is making the move down to turn number 1. Is Eckelmeyer going to try it into the inside line? No is the answer. He has to stay behind for now, but Eckelmeyer will be all over the back of the Williams driver, and Miklavic really just does not have a chance at defending from these guys. We see Skizzer on the soft compound tyres. He's getting ahead of the McLarens. They go through turn number 4. Eckelmeyer attempting to defend that inside line, but it's not going to work out against the soft compound tyre runner of Skizzer through the 6th turn now, and that's a mistake from Miklavic. So Skizzer is going to move right on past his PSR teammate. He's up into the top 5 positions, quickly gaining in the field, and the DRS train does not bother him one bit, and it's not slowing him down either, as he's now onto the back of the Aston Martin of Jack Humphries. But you can see it is the strategy from Drake Dempsey trying to cause some chaos in the field. He's definitely holding up everyone in an attempt to allow his teammate Alves to escape. You can see how slowly he's going through these high speed turns, really slowing up Franco here. So Franco is going to make the move down the DRS straight, and Jack Humphries and also Skizzer need to make sure that they all overtake the Mercedes, because the longer you're behind him, the less chance you have of winning. Skizzer, a good exit out of the final turn of turn number 16. Now Drake Dempsey dumping his ERS down this straight, so it's going to be difficult. Let's see how the drivers react though. It's going to be 3 wide into the first turn. Skizzer with the inside line. He's going to make 3 overtakes into a single turn. Skizzer with the soft compound tyres is unbeatable as Franco defends from gets ahead of Jack Humphries, I should say. Or no, defense, sorry, I'm getting my drivers mixed up. No, he defends from Jack Humphries to keep P3, but Skizzer 3 moves down that DRS straight. His soft compound tires are still lasting. They'll drop off eventually, but now is not the time for him to be losing grip as Drake Dempsey battling it out with Ecclemire and also Miklavich. We can see more vehicles trying to take advantage of this. He goes to the outside line of Ecclemire, and Ecclemire gets caught in behind Drake Dempsey, and Drake Dempsey just causing as much chaos as humanly possible at this stage, although it's not really affecting Alves's race, as that's a tap from behind from, I believe, Moldovan. Did cause a little bit of contact there between himself and Ecclemire. Obviously not predicting how slow Dempsey is forcing Ecclemire to go through the turns. And obviously Dempsey, some of it is he's trying to slow people up, but the other half is he's on 20 lap old hard compound tires. He's still not boxing. He loves to cause chaos apparently, as he's just trying to slow up everyone and ruin everyone's day because of his being ruined at the start of the race. So Ecclemire now going to try to get past. He will be able to make that move. Crucial that you make these kinds of moves. Moldovan is also going to try to make it into number 1. He just about has that outside line, and Drake Dempsey almost turning into the side of Ecclemire as Ecclemire try to open up the steering. We see the soft compound tire of Hall going ahead. Louis Welch is also getting ahead of Drake Dempsey, and Dempsey in the matter of just 3 turns, he's off 5 positions because the Haskar of Cameron Dowds is going to make 2 moves into turn number 4. Cameron Dowds showing why he's in the championship battle, and he moves himself up into P10 on the soft compound tires, but he needs to gain a lot more than that if he wants good points from this race. You can see Drake Dempsey continuing to lose positions, and as a matter of fact, he's actually gone off of the circuit. And that will now drop him to P17, and well, you can see why he's dropped down so far. He has got himself a puncture on the front right tire. And that has dropped him down a lot of position. That's going to hurt his championship hopes. The man who won the first Grand Prix of the season is now going to finish dead last in this Qatar Grand Prix. Let's keep our eyes focused on the front of the field because Skizzer is quite close to the back of Alves into the first turn. Definitely had an opportunity to overtake, but deciding against it. We're seeing Hall look to the outside line of Moldovan. Cannot make that move work just yet. And it's now Hall and Dowds who will be trying to make as many moves as possible. So they are definitely in the best positions tire-wise, in P9 and P10 respectively on the soft compound up tires, although those softs have done 6 and 5 laps each, so they will slowly begin to drop off, and that's when you're going to see they're going to struggle to make the overtakes on the guys ahead. But hopefully we don't have any moves for just a moment, because I would like to direct your attention to the championship standings. Currently 4 of the top 5 drivers in the championship are not doing well in this race. We have our championship leader Liam Stevens, who currently is in P14. He will not be scoring points today. Then we have Cameron Dowds. He's in P10. He might be able to score some more, but even if he does score points, he won't be scoring a very high amount. Skizzer is in P3 in the championship. I think he'll most likely be taking the lead after a performance like this, and he might even make the move into turn number 1. Skizzer with the soft compound tires makes it nice and comfortable into the first turn, but he's not the only man, because Ecclemire has that inside line on Miklavich, and Miklavich with the hard compound tires, he tries to hold around that outside line, and on the hard compound tires he's attempting his best, and this is interesting to see that the hards may be starting to gain a little bit of grip, but nope. Ecclemire is able to complete that move, so the mediums still have an edge on the hards at this stage. But Miklavich putting Ecclemire under a little bit of pressure, so the Williams beginning to find his footing now at this late stage in the Grand Prix, although that time penalty will set him back. Drake Dempsey is P4 in the championship. He is dead last, 55 seconds off of the field. Then we have Louis Welch, as we see the slide there from Miklavich. Louis Welch is in P12. He is outside of the points paying positions. Declan Barrett, he is, I believe, a reserve in this division, and he is not racing today. He's in P6. And then we have Nelson Alves, who's P7 in the championship, and he has got a total of 14 points. And a podium today would pretty much double those points, almost. So I think we're going to see a complete championship reshuffle here after a round like this. And obviously that's bound to happen at the start of a season, and that's when it's most likely to happen. So we're seeing a lot of new drivers at the front of the field, which is always what you want to see. Some new competitiveness as we go down into turn number 1. Franco with the outside, or the inside line I should say, on Alves. It will turn to the outside though for turn number 2, and Franco deciding it's better not to fight this for too long, because these guys do not want to lose the DRS to our race leader Skizzer, because they want to be within range of attack come the final few laps when those soft compound tyres truly have fallen off a cliff. We're seeing side by side Cameron Dowds attempting to make up some positions. He got past Hall, now he's getting past Moldovan, and in P2 in the championship, and now P8 in the Grand Prix is an aggressive move there through the 6th turn, trying to force Moldovan wide, and he does get himself ahead out of the 6th turn. Using the soft compound tyres, he's on 7-lap old soft, so he still have some decent life in them and some decent grip, which will give him good pace for a couple more laps. He's got to make up as many positions as possible. I do believe he is in a net P6 because of the time penalties from Moraviec and Miklavic. If he can overtake Ecklemeyer, he can make that a net P5 as well. So Cameron Dowds, he can still get good points from this race. It's just it's unlikely, and also not as many as he maybe would have. Like Drake Dempsey setting fast up the Grand Prix on his fresh medium compound of tyres. We are now about to enter lap 26 of 29. 4 laps total of racing to go, and we are getting ever closer to deciding our race winner here in Qatar. Ecklemeyer and Moraviec having a little battle into turn number 1, but it's a simple move for Ecklemeyer. Wilson Hall is on the inside line of Moldovan. It'll turn to the outside for the 2nd turn with a medium compound tyres. The Alfa Romeo does its best to defend. That's a bit of contact there between himself and Wilson Hall. And Wilson Hall's actually dropped down there. That's an aggressive defense there from Moldovan, and it almost works out, but no. That's Fionn McKee who sent one into turn number 4. A bit of wheel banging between the two of them, but Fionn McKee having none of that defense, and he is going to make that move and get himself up into P9 and behind his teammate now in the points paying positions, although technically not in the points paying positions because of his time penalty, which will currently drop him down into P11. So getting very aggressive here in the midfield. Everyone's starting to squabble for positions while they still can. And more power to them. Obviously everyone wants those points. Everyone wants to do well in the championship, and I'm sure if given the opportunity, everyone would want to be promoted to PCF2 next season. That is the goal, and that's exactly what they'll try to achieve. But here's Ecklemeyer. He's got himself a time penalty. Currently in P5. This will drop him down to, I believe, P10, possibly P11, maybe P8 if he's lucky. But that 3-second time penalty from Ecklemeyer now means that he's on even time penalties from Moraviec, I do believe. I'm not too sure. We can check now. And if he is on even time penalties, which he is, it means it's fair game between the two of them. So this is the battle for position. There's no penalties at play since they both cancelled each other out. So Ecklemeyer and Moraviec battling for what will probably be, well, not P8, sorry, P7 or P9 or somewhere around that range, because Dowds, Moldovan and Hall all without time penalties at this stage. We should have a good midfield battle along with a good battle for the podium, because none of the top 4 drivers have had time penalties. So all of these guys obviously very familiar with the circuit. They've been doing their practice, they've been doing their research, they've got the setups right, they've got the strategy right, especially in the case of Skizzer. And now this is their opportunity to take advantage of that and get themselves a podium in the Grand Prix. Alves, Franco and Humphreys all in this battle. And I do believe this would be a first podium for everyone here, apart from obviously Skizzer has finished on the podium twice this season. So this is a rare opportunity for Alves, Franco and Humphreys. All 3 of them have an opportunity to finish on the podium for the first time in this season 34 here in PCF3. Cameron Dowds is now on the back of Miklavic. Miklavic on those hards. I think those hards are most likely better than the softs at this stage. And Cameron Dowds into turn number 1, 0% ERS on his wheel. So he's been pushing as hard as he possibly can recently. And that has left him in a vulnerable position, especially to his teammate Phil McKee behind. So it's not ideal for Cameron Downs, our man who's currently P2 in the championship, although that will not be lasting for long. Skizzer will be overtaking him, along with also Nelson Alves will probably jump Cameron Dowds too. You can see how close these four guys are. Ekelmeyer, Moraviec, Miklavic, Dowds, and then we also have Phil McKee, who's in this battle on the soft compound of Tars. It's lovely to see all this battling in the midfield. Plenty of split battles in the field. We have Marquise, who's made a mistake. That's a yellow flag in the middle sector. And actually didn't notice Drake Dempsey came into pit lane and retired from the session after setting his fastest lap of the Grand Prix. So obviously, without an opportunity to score points, he was mainly just there to cause some chaos for his teammate, which did work out for a little bit, but Skizzer was able to get back ahead and is in P1 in this Grand Prix. But here we go. It is the turn number 16 for the penultimate time this race, and that is because we are about to enter the final lap of the Grand Prix. This will be the final, the second final DRS straight, the final full DRS straight of the race. And coming into turn 1, Nelson Alves does not have the straight line speed. He almost tries to make a move mid-apex, but that's not going to work out. So Skizzer holds the position coming through the second turn of the circuit. Skizzer in a brilliant position. He's done a great strategy. He's on fantastic pace. He's shown racecraft. He's shown awareness. He's shown it all. And now it's his time to win his first Grand Prix this season. He's finished P3. He's finished P2. Now it's time to top off the podium positions with the top step on the podium. Skizzer just has to hold on for 2 more sectors through turn number 7. Alves is not that close to him through the 7th turn. And Skizzer turning it up a level, trying to break away, using what little ERS he still has left. The gap is currently 4 tenths between our top 2. It's looking very good in the case of the Williams driver. He could definitely get this race win. We are in the final sector of the lap time. Not too many overtaking opportunities will be presenting themselves to Nelson Alves. He's got to think of something, and he's got to think of it soon. Through the 15th turn, Skizzer goes a little bit wide. Thankfully, not a 3-second time, but it looks like through the 16th turn, Alves is not that close behind. And now, Skizzer out of the final turn. It looks like he has got this lead secure, so he is going to come across the line to win the Qatar Grand Prix. Skizzer gets his first race win of the season, and he will be taking home the championship lead heading into the 5th round of the season. Beautiful strategy from Skizzer. It's paid off beautifully for the Williams driver. In P2, it's Alves who gets his first podium of the season, and Franco got a 3-second time penalty at the end of the Grand Prix, and that has placed him behind Jack Humphreys, missing out on his first podium of the season. But Jack gets his first podium, so Alves and Humphreys are going to have a new experience with the track itself and a new experience on a podium in season 34. What a Grand Prix. So glad that I was able to cover this one. Franco in P4, and Cameron Dowds, he was able to recover. He had 0 seconds of time penalty, so he actually got P5, and I thought he was doing much worse than he actually was. So Cameron Dowds still, he gets that driver of the day for gaining most positions in the race, and he is still well and truly in that championship battle. So good job from Dowds for a recovery like that after a poor qualifying to get himself back into the top 5. The same strategy as Skizzer. And very impressive from the guys who started on the mediums and went to the softs. Good job from all those guys. And also to our podium runners of Skizzer, Alves and Jack Humphreys, who were able to keep it consistent. 0 seconds of time penalties really seems to pay off in this Qatar circuit, because 4 of the top 5 drivers had 0 seconds of time penalties, and that would be our top 3 right here, and also Dowds, who got himself into that top 5. So here are your final results of the Qatar Grand Prix. Skizzer taking home the win after starting P4 in the race. An aggressive and a risky strategy from the PSR man. He played it perfectly. Skizzer wins his first race of the season with Alves starting P2. He finishes P2. Humphreys in a similar situation, taking home 3rd. Franco was able to recover from P6 to P4, or not recover, I should say, improve from P6 to P4, but he'll be disappointed that he missed out on that podium. Cameron Dowds, who started P14, manages to get a top 5, and keeping it consistent really does pay off. It's the same case for Moldovan, who was a couple of positions behind where he actually finished, but with 0 seconds of time penalties, and managed to start P10 and finish P6 Moraviec gets P7 Ecclemire in P8. My fellow Irishman Fionn McKee in P9, and Wilson Hall ends off the points paying position. Sadly, our pole position man McLavich was not able to secure any points, along with our championship leader. Well, no more. It's Liam Stevens who doesn't get any points. Louis Welch, Tony Reich, Jack Lav, Marquise Lopez, and then we have Dempsey, Laminin, and Fabos all retiring from the session. So that was quite the Grand Prix here in PCF3. I hope you really enjoyed this first look of the Qatari circuit here in PSGL on the PC side of things. I know I definitely enjoyed this one. I'm sure Skizzer, Alves, and Humphreys did as well. So a lot of changes to the championship standings and possibly a few changes in confidence for some of the drivers, with some doing poorly and some doing it exceptionally well. Well, I hope you all enjoyed this Qatar Grand Prix. If I had to give one driver of the day, it's what am I saying? It's not a tough choice. It goes straight to Skizzer, the man who won from P4 with a brilliant strategy. Skizzer easily wins driver of the day. Fantastic racecraft, pace, and awareness gets him the race win. So congratulations to him on winning my driver of the day, and congratulations to our podium runners of Alves and Humphreys. I hope you all enjoyed this Qatar Grand Prix. I know I definitely did, and obviously I'm a reserve here in F3, so I may or may not see you next week. I probably won't. But next round should be just as exciting as this one, as the championship begins to get closer and closer, heading into the 5th round at a fan favorite. It's going to be Austria next week, and I'm sure you're all looking forward to that one. But I have been your race commentator, More Games. Glad to be commentating on this one, and until next time, it's goodbye from me.
He's got the inside off here, he's through on the left hand side. Hooks the apex, gets on the power nicely, and that is job done. Jarno Opmeer now to the last couple of corners now. His finest drive, his greatest drive, and he's done it at the Circuit of the Americas. He returns to the top step of the podium. Once again, the GOAT is back. Jarno Opmeer wins the US Grand